name's Javier Correa Jr. I work for a company called Sombrero Mexican Food. We're based out of San Diego, California. We currently have 16 locations, 14 of which are in San Diego County, and two other ones in surrounding counties, Imperial Valley and Riverside County in California. So we were established in 1984. So we've been in business 36 years. We're actually a third generation business. My grandpa actually originally started in the 60s. It was more kind of like a sit down concept. He had a few locations, eventually got out of the business. And then my dad reopened the Sombrero name in 1984, more as a quick serve, fast casual type concept with the counter service. And that's how we got our start.
Has it always been called Sombreros from when your grandfather started?
Yes. So it was always Sombrero Mexican Food. Like I said, it was back in the late 60s. He got up to 3 locations and then kind of got out of it because he, it was all family, no outside employees. So, he didn't really have a scalable model at the time. So,
Gotcha.
So he got out of it. And then my dad, was young, started his own family. He did actually go to a drafting school. So he couldn't find a job. So he ended up, first he had a Mexican bakery, and then eventually he did the first Sombrero, which is still open today in the kind of South Park area of San Diego.
Okay. Now, did your family originally come from Mexico?
Yeah, so my grandparents are both from Mexico, and then my father was born in Tijuana, which is the bordering city here, obviously in San Diego. So he moved to the U.S. To San Diego when he was 5 years old.
All right. So yeah. What caused your dad to reopen the business? Was it simply because he couldn't find another job, or was he really passionate about restaurants?
Well, originally he had a drafting degree, and then he couldn't get a job because he needed experience. So his first venture was this. It was a bakery / little market. And then at the time, every day he would drive past this area to get to where we lived at the time, and he saw this location. It used to be a barbecue place that went out of business, and it was sitting there vacant. So he's like, you know what, I like that location, and he thought it'd be good. But at the time, the taco shops were coming into play, because before it was all like sit down mom and pop where they bring you your food out, table service, but the counter service really kind of started taking off at the time. So he's like, I think it'd be good for that concept. So so that's how he got into it. And then he went in and he did all, using his drafting background, he did all his plans himself, submitted it to the health department, the city, did all his tenant improvements to build out the location. And, he borrowed $2,000 from my great grandfather and $2,000 from his godfather. And that's how he started Sombrero.
So he started with $4,000.
Yep. $4,000. And then that barbecue location, they carried some of the equipment. So that they wanted X amount, I can't remember the amount, and so that they basically carried the equipment that was there. There was some seating, and so he got his foot in the door, and he believed in the concept. He had good work ethic, a little bit of education, and and he just kept working hard. And one difference though is right from the get-go is he was able to hire good people. He kind of broke the mold, what he learned from his side of the family, that is basically if you weren't family, you didn't work, which is not scalable. But he's always had good employees and good staff and systems. Even they were very simple back then, but it was teaching people, that structure and, just little things, business-wise, like, that just leading with professionalism, not just being the typical mom and pop, even though he was a mom and pop individual owner operator working there front and back, day and night. But he always had that kind of level up approach where he took that professional approach. For example, like when I was growing up, when we'd go to a Sombrero, you did not go behind the counter because that wasn't professional. This isn't a playground for the family to come visit and wander around. This is our business. This is our restaurant. And we've always treated it that way. And that's how we were able to evolve. And, so so kind of the two things are, there's two pillars that really he evolved from my grandfather is hiring good people, and then that level of professionalism and just doing things, that one level of, whether it's the food quality, the cleanliness, all those, core values that's what he brought to the table way back when. And that's kind of what we lean on today. And obviously we've evolved quite a bit since then. So.
Right. Where did he get the recipes for the food that he served?
So a lot of the recipes were from the original location, which my grandparents developed. Like one of our signature things is, like, we have this, we call it our mole sauce. It's our enchilada sauce, but it's not like a traditional mole, which has chocolate, but it's like almost like a Mexican gravy. So that's something that we still serve today. A lot of the, the salsas, quite a few of the original recipes. He brought that from the original, what my grandparents had, and kind of evolved that into that counter service, which, it's Mexican food, especially our type of Mexican food, is like the original scratch cook everything. It's very, very scratch cook. Even to this day, a lot of the things we do are very scratch cooked.
So would it be fair to say that your original recipes were really brought from Mexico to San Diego for the restaurant? Is that where they originated?
Yeah, a lot of them, because my grandparents, they were born in, deep in Mexico, and then they moved to Tijuana when they were younger, and then they eventually came to San Diego. So yeah, it definitely was. It's very well rooted, but it also evolved kind of to the San Diego style that we talk about today. It's just that, because San Diego is really known for the taco shop,
right.
The burrito. The burrito is king here. It's not a bunch of, they call it taco shops, but really we sell more burritos than anything. So that was always the key. So
you're not like Taco Bell?
A little different. You could attest to that.
I thought you'd get a kick out of that comment. They sell a lot of their 79-cent tacos. They're actually now $1.19. But there used to be, when I was running my section, ours were 49 tacos, 59 burritos, and 59, 79, 99. 59 tacos, 99-cent burritos, and then anything was a supreme went up to all the way up to 99 cents. So 59, 79, 99. We called it our 3-tier menu. Now, we weren't anywhere near the quality or the fillingness of the food that you serve at Sombrero. So how did you get started into the family business? And why did you do this as opposed to going off to college and doing your own thing?
Yeah, it just kind of progressed. As a kid, I was always around my dad. So he was, like I said, we'd go visit the restaurants. We'd go around, check on the restaurants. We sit in the car a lot of the times, but so I'm always close by my dad. And then as he was kind of up and coming, I was right there with him, building these locations, checking on the businesses, whether it's doing construction, or developing these new locations. And then kind of at 10 years old, I really actually started working in the restaurant, meaning drive-through, cashier. Like I was actually physically, hands-on in the restaurant since I was 10, and it was just, I didn't know anything different. I was always around my dad. And, but also it was an opportunity for me personally. Anytime I wanted something, it was, hey, all right, we got to go work at it. So I really learned the value of $1. Actually, I learned the value of an hour, because what I would do is I'd carry a little spiral notebook. Anytime I'd go to a restaurant, let's say my dad was checking on it, I'd be in uniform and I'd help him do something, whether it's prep, cleaning, whatever it need be, even if it was 2 hours. So I would always document every hour I worked. And then at the end of the week, I had a list of hours, and, at $5 an hour, it starts adding up. And then you do that for a whole summer, you're self-sufficient.
So you learned personal accounting early.
Exactly. And the value of, just showing up consistently, like of every hour work. Like I think some people get caught up in the big picture, but you just show up every day. It adds up to something bigger if you do it consistently over time. So that, to me, that's why I kind of stuck in the business growing up, because I understood that. And I always, if I wanted a bike, I would save up all summer and get a bike.
That's interesting. Now, did other members of the family also participate in the business?
Yes. So my sister, very similar. She did the same thing. And, we were growing up, we would go work part-time here and there. And And then my younger brother, he's 10 years younger, so a little bit of an age gap. He eventually, started working when he was later in high school. And so and then now my sister, she's more on the admin side. My brother, he actually is not real involved with the restaurant. He actually works part-time with us, but he's kind of in another industry. But so mainly it's just me and my sister, we're kind of still ingrained in the business. But yeah, so that was my initial start. And then, that was up until once I got out of high school, so 18 years old, then I kept, that's when I really got in more of the admin role, like really looking at everything globally, and really started to make some progress on systems. One of the first things I did was standardize the recipes. We had these great recipes, which were fairly consistent, but they're pretty consistent, but they weren't formal. So we did formal recipes. At first it was just doing a cup of this, a cup of that. And then as the years went on, we did everything by weight. So like now today, everything's weighted, and just like, so so after high school, that's when I really started to do the admin stuff as far as trying to really grow that consistency, kind of on the operation side. And then which is cool, because knowing that operations, as far as one, how to perform at the restaurant, two, start building consistency of systems. And then now today, as we kind of evolve like more of the financial side of it, understanding how those all correlate, it has really helped me, because we've done a lot of things manually. And now when we do like new technologies, understanding the manual process and the nuts and bolts of it really helps when you do these new technologies, whether it's reporting, POS or labor, anything. So we've kind of developed manually over time with spreadsheets and all this crazy stuff.
Right.
So we figured that out. But so it's nice now, because there's so much technology, it's nice to be able to bridge the gap.
That's a good segue to another question I wanted to ask you. Was, over the time that you've been involved in the restaurants, have you seen a lot of technological changes that have affected the business?
Yes and no. So I always say my job is from the counter forward on the customer side. We kind of want everything to look the same as it did back in 1984, right?
Okay.
Get that same food, same type of service, all that stuff. And then behind the counter, obviously, like POS, for example, yes, that is because there's so much more information, so much data. So trying to understand that data, I've seen that evolve. And then as far as, but then when you get down to it, it's just the food. So there's just, there's a few elements that kind of helped on that regard. But what we do is we really do try to keep the integrity of the food. We always say the integrity of our food and our people, right?
Right.
So there, like we haven't evolved so much on the food side, because a lot of it has to be to keep that integrity. It's very delicate. It's a delicate balance. But that being said, we've been able to kind of innovate with some of the, using third parties that specialize in certain production of proteins, for example, or other things. We've been able to use that. But internally, there hasn't been just a lot of it's just like information flow. That's where we've seen technology really benefit us.
Do you envision that future changes will occur within the restaurant business that will actually automate some of your manual processes today?
Oh yeah, definitely. So some of the things we have in queue right now. So actually backtracking a little bit on the customer side, the one thing that has changed a lot with technology is, things like Uber Eats and DoorDash.
Yeah.
So that's how the customer interacts with your brand, right? So that is an area where we're very focused on, is really, we call it our digital strategy. So basically it's connecting with our current production, connecting that with how you interact with a customer, because there's a lot of gaps in between, which creates a lot of slack. So for example, Uber Eats, when you sign up for Uber Eats, they give you a tablet, and the tablet just dings. Now you have to input that order into the POS, right? So that's a gap. So what we're trying to do is utilize technologies to eliminate all these gaps or slack in operations.
So that the whole Uber Eats and so on, how's that affected your overall business? Has it brought in more business?
Yes, it's brought in more business, but it's at a premium, because, you know, you pay anywhere from 25 to 30% off the top. So it's basically like a subsidized sales. You know, you're not getting the 100% of the sales. So for example, if we sell a $20 order and they take, you know, 30% off, that's $6 off that order. So that's a big chunk, you know, especially when you're running relatively tight margins in the restaurant business. So which is another reason why we haven't gone all in on that delivery, because we really want. And then the delivery model kind of remains to be seen. And even in the industry right now, if you keep up with the restaurant, like I know a recent one was Chipotle on their quarterly review, they talked about how, yes, they're getting more top line, but their bottom line shrinking because they've been doing so much volume on their digital side. They're trying to figure out how to convert that long term, because it's great in the short term, but I don't know how sustainable it is. So that's one area. That's kind of one I mean, I don't want to say a challenge, but it's definitely an opportunity that needs to be kind of figured out. So, and utilizing different technologies to do that. Cause like I said, if you have so much volume coming in, it's not like, oh, okay, I get a couple orders an hour, we have to input in the POS. But if you have, like, you know, quite a bit of orders coming in, you have to automate that system. And that's one thing we're piloting right now.
Gotcha. So did you start out when your dad reopened Sombrero with drive-throughs as part of your business, or did he start out with just counter and dining room?
Yeah, it was mainly counter and dining room. It wasn't until our first drive-through location, we didn't open until 1992.
Okay.
Yeah, that was our first drive-through location. So, and that's where we've seen a major difference.
What made you go that direction rather than keeping the model without a drive-through?
Well, one, the opportunity presented itself, and and I mean, it's all, you know, we started very small. Like my dad had his first store, and then the second one was almost gifted to him. Like it was an old friend who, you know, bought a restaurant, couldn't operate it. And so again, my dad got in with little to nothing down, and the guy carried it. So, and then he just slowly built up. He was self-funded, you know, he didn't get outside investors. He didn't take on debt. Yeah. So everything was self-funded, and as opportunities presented themselves, that's what he did. And that was that first opportunity it was an old Del Taco way back in the day, and it was a Mission Gorge location. So that was our first drive-through, and it just happened to be the opportunity presented himself, and he had the capital to jump on it, and he did it. And then eventually we later bought that building, which was that's the real estate side of our business too. So
that's interesting. I didn't realize that was a former Del Taco. Given the volume that you're doing there, it's amazing that Del Taco abandoned that site.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, again, everything's timing.
Yeah, it is. That's interesting. Let's go move to the people. You've indicated that the people side of the business was very important when you worked from your grandfather's model, which was all family, to the more professional model of leveraging the business with external employees. What was the philosophy at the time that you guys made that change, and how have you evolved in terms of the practices and the hiring of people along the way?
Yeah, well, so when my dad hired people, he always worked very close with them. So they were almost like family, but it was, we gave them opportunities, you know, whether it's growing and management, you know, a lot of our friends, you know, we have 16 locations, 9 of them are corporate ran. The other ones, so the other 7 are franchisees or family members. And of our franchisees, most of them were the current franchisees that are not family. They were longtime managers, so we basically set them up with their own location. So there was always a growth path, and we've always work close with people, work with people. We want them to grow with us, and growing doesn't, we're real big on teaching them new things and evolving. They've evolved with us, and then just opportunities. So we've always take care of our people. We've always compensated them well. And we've always just been really close as far as communication wise, and, you know, really, just connecting well with our people. And that's what we do today. And then now today, it's the big thing is same thing. It really hasn't changed much. It's just kind of keeping the same core values, but working it in the current context. So I know we're big on learning. So I just had a meeting with all my leaders last week, which is all the store managers. So we expanded that to their leaders at their location. So we want more people to be involved in what we're trying to do as a company.
Right.
So the more people who are buying into what we're doing or even understand where we're going as a company, the better. So I'm really big on communication. So my big thing is listening. So I always want to be listening. So what opportunities are there? Because we want to be learning, and then we want to be communicating, supporting, and ultimately taking action. So we try to just kind of get that to our staff because we're available. That's one of the beauty is we've gotten larger, but we try to keep the lines of communication open and really be so everyone feels connected. That's kind of always been, people feel very connected, as to our company.
You would say that's probably one of your strong suits as a company, is that you really connect with the employees and they feel very involved in the business itself.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
And we've seen that, like they say, we've asked them like, well, what do you like? Well, I feel like I'm part of a family. I'm learning stuff, and they know what's expected of them. We're very organized with the systems. People see value in the systems where they're not just working at a chaotic environment where day to day the expectations change, or you don't know what to do. And we've got a lot of feedback on that regard too.
One of the things that we're studying in the American Workplace course that I'm teaching is values, corporate values. Would you mind sharing your corporate values so they kind of get a sense of what a company does when they establish values and how it affects the behavior of your employees?
Yeah, kind of echoing what I just said. One of our values is family. We try to treat everyone with that family feel. We try to, we really pride ourselves on, the quality of everything we do, whether it's, it's quality of service, quality of food, quality of people. So that's really big. And then that culture is just continuing to communicate it, whether it's easier for, I want to treat everyone as family. So it's always trying to innovate, on how do we continue to communicate, like I said, we brought in this. We typically have all our 16 managers on this leadership call. So last week we expanded it to their individual leaders. So we had 45 people on the call. So that means, we're getting in front of more people and letting them see. So it's just all about communication and staying connected and those core values really, you got to live them out, and we do little things like, every month we have our list, our birthdays and our anniversaries. So we celebrate those every month. And
so that's part of
little things.
That's part of being like the family, is including them in those kind of important events in their life.
Yeah, we want to celebrate it because my goal is, I get it. Not my life is sombrero, but not everyone else's life is sombrero. But we want to use sombrero to make a difference in their life. So yes, they're coming to work, working for us, but ultimately it should be supporting their life, their dreams outside of sombrero. So it's kind of blending the two, which is that's the fun part about my job, is kind of me understanding that even when the employee doesn't see that. And it's all those little things that make a difference. Like I said, the birthdays, we've had countless employees say, man, this is the only birthday present I got this year.
That's sad, but happy at the same time.
Yeah. And then the anniversaries, we have people go, man, I worked at this other job. They never once recognized me. And then for Christmas, we give everyone a Christmas ham and some kind of Christmas gift. We kind of switch, just little things like that. Sometimes it gets harder as you get a little bigger, but we try to make a consistent effort, to do those little things, just consistent over time. So it's not just random.
So what would you say is the hardest part of running a restaurant chain?
Well, I think, there's obviously many different aspects, but once we were constantly improving our operations and the systems and all that. So that's always going to be evolving. But the second part is the people side, right? Because there's a lot. It's your biggest challenge and your biggest reward. Because when people are on and you have these, you really connect and you see you're making a difference, and you see when it's. We have really great people, right? But it's always trying to I mean, again, evolve. You always got to evolve. The workforce is changing. You know, I mean, we have just on our corporate side, we have close to 150 employees. So that's 150 people, lives and families that they have a lot going in their lives. So it's trying to really can be difficult to manage and balance, you know, all these different personalities and
right.
dynamics that everyone's dealing with. I mean, especially given right now the circumstances. So
absolutely.
It's challenging because it's not black and white. You know, it's gray. It's so gray, and it's trying to, you know, just balance all that.
Have you experienced over your 20, 30 years of experience in the restaurant business a change in the values of employees towards work and towards their employers?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I mean, it's pretty well known, especially here in the U.S., that there's a different view. Before it was like people come to America like, oh man, they value business owners as like, wow, that's that. I mean, because at the end of the day, an entrepreneur is taking big risk. Like,
right.
So I look at Sombrero. I don't look at it from the 16 locations. Everything looks all buttoned up, and you know, that's what the public viewing, and I'm glad that's what people see, because that means we're doing a good job. But I look at it as like, I understand the 36 years of struggles, the ups and downs. You don't win every day. You don't win on every location. You know, it's just constantly, it's like fail, but you keep progressing, right? And we take all the risk and everything associated with. So, you know, before it was people, I feel valued the kind of the business,
right.
especially the small business owners. But now they kind of, everything gets grouped together as just business. And I think sometimes we can get a negative connotation, which is why even more important that we need to kind of change the narrative and humanize it on our side is like, so if me operating this business, if I show up and connect individually with those employees and they kind of see what I'm all about,
right.
Then it's not an abstract concept of just business owners. It's, well, no, the owner of Sombreros is this guy, and this is what he's all about, and this is how they want. And I don't say that just individually. I say that for my entire, you know, leadership team.
Right.
So
how
opinion.
have those values been impacted by the pandemic on your business? How have people reacted, and how have you managed through that process so
far? Well, I think kind of when this crisis hit, you know, obviously we got hit with a bunch of different things that I don't want to say we never seen them before, because we kind of have, you know, kind of our strong suit is when a crisis comes, we're all hands on deck, and we don't have all the right answers, but we'll get the answers. So we always take it in stride, and but the most important thing is to be timely with it. So that's where we did a really good job, because different scenarios popped up. But what did we do? Direct line of communication, direct point person, ongoing communication, and then we get them resolved, because there's going to be problems. But the problem is, the goal isn't to avoid all problems. It's when a problem occurs, it's what do you do about it? And that's how we've been. And actually, our culture has thrived, because that's what we pride ourselves on. We're close to the action. We have the resources and the people to, you know, get together, rally, and come up with a plan. So that we've had a lot of successes with that. So,
was there ever a time over the last 8 months where you felt like things are just falling apart, or did you always feel like you were in total control?
I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, so I don't want to say I ever felt once felt that everything was just falling apart. Okay. But it was very perpetual. I mean, it was pretty demanding and taxing. Yep. But like, you always look back, it's like, man, we get to this. We've been through this in the past. You know, we've overcome a lot of things. So it's I don't want to say I've like felt like throwing in the towel, but it's pretty taxing, because it's so perpetual, just ongoing, long. Right. It wasn't like a one event and then you work your way out of it. It's more like, just keep swimming, keep treading water, you know. But we always had a kind of like a beacon, and we've come up with systems that, okay, how we're going to measure it on the short term, and you know, we're going to try to come up with a plan long term, but we're going to keep measured on the short term and keep connecting. And that's what we did. Every week we have our admin meeting, we group together what's hot, what's the hot topics,
right?
What's our performance, and just keep assessing, and just consistency every single week since this COVID started. We've had a check and balance and a conversation on certain specifics of our business that we've just been tracking and reacting to as needed. So
what from what I understand, you're actually experiencing fairly significant growth in your revenues during the pandemic, whereas others are, some of them are shuttering up or just barely getting by. What do you attribute that to?
Well, so, we do have a few stores that are down, they're down, which we're working out and we're adjusting, trying to get them, even though they're down in sales, we're trying to get them to profitability, which we're getting some success on that. But kind of globally, yes, we are. We're experiencing some pretty good successes, and I attribute it to, a couple of things. Is our brand's very relevant. So, given the certain situation, obviously a lot of them are. Well, our main business is to go and drive through. So that's what everyone's doing right now. They're taking food to go. So that in and of itself is good. Second, geographically, our locations are set up in areas that have not been significantly impacted. Like for example, if we were in malls and real touristy areas, they're ghost towns.
Mm-hmm.
So and we even before COVID, we're aware of that, because we don't. Some locations are just real highs and lows, and we like to keep even kill, and we're real neighborhood centric. So kind of just the concept in general is relevant. Where the locations are relevant. And then third, I think understanding the economics of our business. So we've been able to make very specific decisions with different situations that came up, whether it's on the labor side, cost of goods side, sales side. We've been very nimble from an admin level, but all the way down to the store level, where everyone's seeing the good information and they understand the information firsthand. So like all my store managers, they know on a day-to-day basis what their key performance indicators are. Mm-hmm. So they kind of know where to track. So it's not like we have to come in and give them a report. They already know what they're looking at, and they know how to adjust these key, basically which lever to pull. Right.
Well, that goes back to something you said earlier, which is over time you've developed the systems, and then technology's enabled you to use those systems down at the store level on a shift by shift basis, as I understand what you just said, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
So
now, in the midst of this pandemic, you also had another unfortunate event, didn't you?
Yeah. So
talk us through how you took a tough situation, the pandemic, and dealt with something that was pretty darn tragic.
Yeah, so we had yesterday was 2 months. We had one of our number 3 volume store. So mind you, it's a drive-through location. So the way these drive-through locations kind of took a dip, and then they've been very strong during COVID. So we're excited about that. My team was excited. We're doing well, and we had unfortunately there was a vehicle, police chase, car went through an intersection, through our drive-through lane directly into our building, and basically destroyed the kitchen, the service area, knocked down walls, and on the impact, hurt a handful of our employees, which is, this is at 7:30 p.m. on a Thursday, never the call you want to get. So, immediately there's a lot of dynamics here. Our number one priority is the health and safety of our staff. And like I said, our staff is like our family. And when you have people get injured, it's, just going into that situation, it's pretty tough. But so that's one dynamic, is, taking care of our people. So we had injuries, so we had to triage that, get them in line with the right resources. And then, which was first the injuries. Second, you have displaced employees who rely on us for their livelihood. And then third is managing the repairs and getting us back whole, so we could obviously get back operable again. So yeah, so it all kind of literally hit us in a flip of a switch. It was like all these things at once. So again, we do what we do. I mean, my leadership team is great, from the store manager there to my operations manager to our HR manager, to all the other managers. They've been helping out too. And we just been, taking care of our staff and as a whole, and then also individually. We've basically been almost like case managers for the people that were affected. And yeah, and everyone has different needs and getting that addressed. So yeah, that was a pretty big incident that we're still working through. The location's been down for 2 months, so we're trying to get that resolved.
Wow. So one of the things that I'm taking away from our conversation so far, and you've hit it almost every time I ask a question, is people first. And I think it's just comes through very sincerely that that's a wonderful philosophy to have towards your business. And there's not many business operators that not only talk about it, but execute it the way I've heard you say you execute. One of the things that I'd like to move on to next is, during your time in business, there have been a lot of laws that have passed that have affected businesses. Can you talk to some of the laws or legal changes that have occurred in business that have affected you either positively or negatively?
Yeah, I mean, we're in California, so everyone in California says that you have the U.S. laws and then you have the California laws. So it's almost like you have double laws and regulations. So it's, right. I mean, it can be challenging and burdensome, but yeah, I mean, employment law is very challenging in California. To stay. I mean, even if you want to do things right, it could be challenging because it's so much. There's so many little micro laws that you have to hit every one of them. So that could be challenging. So that's employment law remains probably one of the biggest challenges. But again, that's why you gotta be consistent, come up with the systems, and just follow through it all the time. Other ones were the healthcare laws, adapting to that, and then you're having to analyze how those impact your costs. So that's been something that we've been working through. But again, we have our partners that we connect with, we get educated on it, we come up with a plan, and then we also adjust along the way too. So that's been kind of our philosophy. So we don't know what's going to come our way, but we're confident we could work through it, especially if we look at it from a people standpoint. And we understand the economics of it and how it relates to our business. Right. We just kind of strategize that way.
So what was some of the bigger what you call labor laws that have affected your business in the last 20 years?
Oh, okay. Yeah, 20 years. It's man, there's quite a few. So there's obviously the wage and hour laws. So you have your you have your rest periods, your meal periods, your overtime, you have double time, you have that was one, and then another one is just joint employer. So like obviously you got to track if they go between different stores because we're seen as one employer, even though we have multiple corporations at different locations, different ownership. Right. So just tracking that. So kind of on the wage and hour.
Also, you've seen a significant change in the minimum wage, haven't you?
Oh yeah, the minimum wage.
What was it when you were working in the restaurant? You said something about $5 an hour.
Yeah, I think $5. I think it was even lower before that, but I think I was I guess I always got paid a little above minimum wage. No, but no, yeah, the minimum wage has just been. I mean, it's always, it's been going up constantly over time, but these past, so effective January, it's going to go up to $14 an hour. So it's just been fast tracking. So we're trying to stay on top of that. Right. One, from a obviously economic standpoint, you got to make sure you protect your bottom line. Cause if we're not profitable at the end of, so really the balance is serve our customers, serve our employees, serve our community, but we have to be fiscally responsible. It's a balance. So right. If you're not profitable, you're not going to be here to serve your people. And if you only serve your people, you're not going to be profitable. So, business is about weighing those two things out. So obviously we want to be as competitive as possible for our customers. But at the end of the day, we have to, if we want to stay open as a business, we have to understand the economic impact of all this. So that's been challenging because it's been so rapid, where before it was always, every couple of years or even longer and minimally. So now it's just going up, dollar every year. So,
yeah.
So we're going to be at $15 next year, 14 the start of this year. So we've been really having to do that and work closely with all our suppliers and really understand the economics of our business. So, and that's the economic side. The other side is to actually get the people and employ them. It's very challenging to get people because it's a competitive labor force right now. Construction's very booming right now, so that sweeps a part of our employees, and then there's just other industries. So it's a very competitive labor market, and the cost. So it can be challenging.
Now, we had in our class yesterday a discussion about what happens when minimum wages go up and what businesses tend to do to react. What are one of the things we're seeing in some businesses is that's forcing automation to displace employees, saying, okay, the cost of that employee has gotten to the point that I can embrace a new type of technology and replace the employee. Do you see things like that other than a price increase as ways to manage the economics?
Yeah, definitely. Like I mentioned earlier, thankfully we've evolved as a brand where we're still trying to deliver that same quality and integrity of the product. So we've been trying to offset that with outsourcing a couple, key ingredients and, without getting too specific, but we did that proactively.
Right.
And that's been there's like a handful of items that we've evolved and, that's a game changer because we're struggling as it is right now. If we were still doing things the way we were 5 years ago or even 3 years ago, it would be even more of a burden. So that's been good. So yeah, definitely technology. And it's going to be hard because, there's a fine tipping point where, it's just economics. It's either, we always say we want to find the same quality or better. So we really don't budge on that, but we're also looking at ways to innovate it with equipment and so forth. Like, for example, especially right now during COVID, we have the little salsa cups. So we have to hand fill each one of them with squeeze bottles. We put lids on them. You're talking thousands and thousands and thousands a week. So that's one thing I'm looking at is, can I buy a machine that kind of seals them up? So that's one example because it's just, if you're going to pay the labor, you want them doing something that requires a person to do it, not just if I could find a machine to replace it, just
right.
kind of shifting the labor around. So
do you see, Javier, as a result of the COVID and the pandemic effects on your business, permanent changes that are going to be implemented in the restaurant industry as a result that are going to stay with us as opposed to just being temporary changes?
Yeah, I think that from my perspective, and also talking to other people in the industry, there's already things happening that people are embracing from an operation standpoint. So one, they're really taking a hard look on prices, really charging what you need to charge. Because right now their backs are against the wall. They have to charge it because if not, I think, so I think obviously prices are going to go up because I think people are seeing the true cost of operating what they need, how they need to operate.
Right.
Second, I think that people are consolidating operations. They're taking and we've done it too, is we're tightening up some business hours. We're kind of cutting the fat. Like instead of opening at 6 a.m., some stores are opening at 8 and we're still seeing the same sales. It kind of, it's shifting the behavior of the customer. So I've seen that. I think like we talked about dining rooms, like I don't know how critical they are going to be in the future. I think streamlining menus. I mean, you mentioned Taco Bell. I mean, they've been cutting stuff off their menu. They're realizing everyone's getting leaner right now. So whether it's, like just getting rid of a lot of the fluff, which is I think it's a good thing. So, and I think that's what good businesses do is they they adjust, and that's what it is. It's either, you don't sit and wait. You got to always be looking for opportunities. And so I definitely think there's takeaways that are going to be out there that are things that were novelties before, I think are going to kind of go by the wayside. And it's just going to be a lot more focus is what I see. So.
Yeah, there's a belief that in the business sector, general business sector, anytime there's a tragic event that occurs, businesses have three choices: roll over and die, adapt, or thrive. And those that are learn how to thrive in a challenging environment are the ones who ultimately win at the game of business. And what I've seen from you is you are figuring out all the problems out there. And yeah, there's a hiccup along the way, but you've learned how to thrive in this business environment rather than just say give up. And to me, there's no reason for businesses to have given up. And because there have been ways for every small business that I work with is still surviving. So I'm really proud of that part. But there's some that they just rolled over and said, I'm throwing in the towel, I'm giving it up.
Well, there's the example. It's like we know that, like for example, drive-through times specifically, or to-go times in general. We've been focused on that. So we've been improving our drive-through. So our drive-through volume has gone up, and we've been improving our drive-through times. So we've been putting a focus on that. So that's the thriving. It's like, okay, we know where this is at. So how can we even be the best at that right now? How can we do that better?
Right.
And that's what we've been seeing. So that's part of our success right now. And so we have a tragic event at one of our locations. We have people having COVID cases with their family. Like, how can we better engage with our staff? I mean, we've had even just a tragic incident at the with that car accident. We've been been able to connect better and support our a lot of our employees. And sometimes things are bad, but good. You can find good in it and find ways to keep growing.
Right. I have one last question I want to ask you, because I promise I'm trying to keep this to an hour. And it's really has to do with kind of what you see happening in the future in the restaurant industry in particular, but in terms of general changes in business in the future. Just kind of play a futurist, if you will, Javier, and say, okay, I see in our industry these kind of changes, but I think in general business is going to go away or go this way. And I'll use as an example. There's a lot of forecasts that said that in business, this is not particular to the restaurant business, but office buildings are going to become less relevant in the future because people have learned that I can conduct business remotely. It's hard to do that in the restaurant business, but I can imagine a place where we could manage restaurants remotely with fewer people, but that's not where I'm going. So anyway, just relative to the restaurant business, what do you see in the future? And then kind of in general business, things that you may see changing in the business industry.
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of what I said earlier is, and even what we said in general business, I think less is going to be more going forward. The more focused, the more simple you can be, the more, because that opens up so much more. You can run leaner, you can make quicker decisions. So it's less is going to be more, because it's going to allow you to just run leaner and meaner. And I think that's how people are. So I think it's true for the restaurant or just business in general. But in the restaurant business, I see a lot of the businesses that are thriving right now are the ones that are keeping it simple.
Right.
Keep it simple. Like obviously I researched the industry a lot, but there's a lot of them that are the ones that are thriving they're keeping it simple. They're sticking to their core, and then they're just executing. It's all about execution, So I think on the restaurant business, it's just, I think you're seeing a lot of the marginal concepts, marginal locations. Those ones are kind of going by the wayside. And guys like me who are seeing success, we're not going to put ourselves in those marginal situations. And I think that's what a lot of businesses were doing. I mean, now going to the business side, I think a lot of businesses were doing that. They were getting in situations where they were running on red, and it just burst. So I think so I think keeping it simple and then not putting yourself in marginal situations is going to be the key going forward.
Yeah, that's a great point. So one of our local restaurant chains, Rubio's, as you probably are aware, filed Chapter 11 reorganization. But what it did is allowed them to shed a lot of those marginal locations that were out of their primary market. So, you know, they're still going to be okay. But what's happened is they had a chance and they took it, and it's a kind of a scary chance. But unfortunately, the court has approved their reorganization plan to really shed those marginal assets out there. And I think there'll be a healthier organization for it. How about just employ? Is there anything that can be done in a restaurant concept that can be done remotely as opposed to need to be done in the restaurant itself? I'm asking you to really think outside the box on that one.
No, I know. I've seen there's a ton of stuff because there's a lot of well, you got to kind of assess what you got to review what's really done inside the restaurant,
right?
And maybe it's not per se eliminating it, but it's a kind of like a admin, for example. I know there's a lot of outsourcing on admin where you could create systems where, like, if our store manager, they're more hands-on because they have to be. At the end of the day, you're not going to eliminate a store manager from being at a restaurant. You need to have a person there. But if you could take away a lot of the admin, and so he can make quicker, more focused decisions operationally, that could eliminate. And that's what we try to do, is kind of lighten up the admin loads. So we're looking at ways to do that. But then I know there's other things like to-go orders, even drive-through. There's I heard about outsourcing, like where you're literally talking on a drive-through and it might be somebody like in India or something. So I've heard about that.
Taking the order?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. And I know one big shift too, I talked about the digital strategy is, like from cashiers. So we're going to be testing some stuff here is, with the QR code. I know it's during COVID, everyone's using the QR codes, right? No one's used them barely for years.
Right.
Now they're like the biggest thing with COVID, right? So we're trying to shift our ordering. We're doing some stuff on our menu, like on the back end, but eventually we want to do these QR codes. So maybe we can eliminate, when you come in, you just place your order right on your iPhone, and then the employee, all they're doing is giving you your food, but they're not sitting there waiting and taking on your order. Because can you shift that? Technically you can. You could outsource it to the customer because you're utilizing their technology. So
that's what I did with self-serve drinks.
Yeah, that costs us millions. There you go. That's one thing that might not be coming back.
Yeah.
So that outsourcing that, I think, and then again, like I said, like finding, like we did with some products, is outsourcing certain prep work or things like that can be done to scale.
So one last question. Would you recommend to people to pursue a career in the food service industry? And if so, why?
Well, I guess it depends. It depends on your character. If you're up for the challenge, it's challenging, but it's rewarding too. You gotta be the right type of person. I think.
What's the right kind of person look like to you?
You got to be resilient and be able to, not be disheartened when you get faced with challenges. Some of the pros, we talked about it. Some of the benefits is, like you said, there's no other business that you could be running a multi-million-dollar business in such a short period of time with minimal education.
Right.
Relatively speaking, you could do $1 million+ operation on a restaurant pretty easy, and there's nowhere else you're going to learn so many different aspects of business, customer service, interacting with so many guests. It's invaluable. Even just like my basic cashier, it's like the different people they interact with on a daily basis. It's, man, it's so scalable to, anything, because you learn. You learn customer service. You learn how to deal with people. You learn how to you learn accountability, you learn systems, you learn how to work as a team. There's just so many elements of the restaurant business, which is kind of the beauty of it, but also the challenging part of it. So, but if it's done right, it could be highly profitable, and most importantly, a heck of a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, I think I've told you, my number 6 child is the 6 of 6 that's worked in the restaurant industry, and all of them have enjoyed it. So you speak highly of it yourself. I never encouraged any of them to do it. They all pursued it and loved it. So I think you're right. It is a rewarding experience, but there are times my youngest daughter came home yesterday. A lady yelled at me, Daddy. Because she forgot.
That was the first time?
No, it wasn't the first time, but she's very sensitive.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to let me interview you. And I know my students are going to enjoy this interview, Javier. So thank you so much. And you've given some really good insights into business in general, but into the restaurant industry in particular. And I appreciate that very much.
All right. No, happy to help.
Okay. Take care, Javier. Say hi to your family.
All right, Larry. Yep. Have a good day. See ya.